Namaste, Shivai, to all of you. Today we are having the fourth plenary session. It is on social work research on community development in India. To chair this session, we have Professor Channaveer Ji from Central University of Karnataka, who is a renowned scholar in the fields of community development and social development. I have seen online, he has done, I think, using participatory approach, only he has guided a PhD. And even international social work also he has guided PhD. Very, very rarely in India we have done in these areas research. So I welcome Professor Channaveer to take over the session. In this session, we have speakers from Assam University, Mizoram University, Udaipur School of Social Work, ICFA University and all. So we have Professor Subrata Datta, former head of the Department of Social Work, Assam University, to talk on social work research on urban community development in India. We have Dr. C. Laleng Zama, my own colleague and my own scholar, who is now at present working with us to talk on social work research on tribal development, especially livelihood. Then we have Dr. Avnish Nagar, the principal, Udaipur School of Social Work, who will be talking on research on social mobilization and development. And we have another scholar, former PhD scholar of our department, my own candidate under my own guidance, Vanlal Sruvaijela Kolsring. He will be presenting on social work research on rural development in India. Then we have Dr. Elizabeth, who will be speaking on women and well-being, social work research on women and well-being in India. So now I request Professor Channaveer sir to take over the session and conduct the presentations and discussions. Namaste. Thank you.
Sir. Namaste, sir. Namaste. Good morning to all the panelists who are going to share their experiences on social work research pertaining to community development. I am grateful to Mizoram University, Department of Social Work, Professor Kanagarajan, for giving this opportunity. We have very wonderful paper presenters, Professor Datta and Laleng Zama, Avinash Nagar, then Elizabeth, One Love. So I will be requesting each one to present their paper on one by one. So it's a very great opportunity to be associated with you. So it is not that I'm going to chair as such, but I am part of your panel. I want to learn from the research what you have carried on as part of your social work education. So I request Professor S. Datta to present his paper.
Namaste.
Namaste, sir. Namaste.
Very good morning to you all, specifically Professor Channaveer, Professor Kanakaraj, Professor Devendran, and my other colleagues who are there, Dr. Elizabeth, and the co-speakers with me in these sessions. So first of all, thanks to the organizing team, Professor Kanakaraj and his team, for giving me this opportunity to deliver a talk into this national webinar. And it is a good effort Professor Kanakaraj and his team has made to make this a good platform to share our experiences on research and the issues. and I believe it is going to be very beneficial for all the participants and the organizers over here. So I would like to share my presentation slides. So how I can slide? Can you guide Professor Kanakaraj, please? Because first time in Zoom I'm sharing it.
See below, share screen is there.
Yeah, share screen. Na? Okay.
Click
Yeah,
that.
share screen.
Achha. From there I have to take it from my desktop. Na?
Yeah. Share screen automatically you open the PowerPoint and share screen and go on slideshow mode.
Files.
After share screen, what you are getting, sir? On
Basic, advanced, and files. So I'm going to files.
yeah.
Actually, it is on my desktop. How I can take it?
1 minute.
Open your PowerPoint and then come to share screen and then share it. Share the particular page.
It is on your desktop, no? It will appear.
Yeah.
It appears normally if it is on your desktop.
Generally, it is showing the Dropbox, Microsoft OneDrive, Google Drive, Box, and Microsoft things.
Okay.
That's okay. I'm just getting down and I'm opening it.
Yeah, you just once again. Sir.
I've opened it on my desktop.
Yeah,
now
you opened it. Now you can share screen.
Okay. So
Now you can share the screen. Go to
after we think now the Zoom part is small. So
what you are getting on your screen, sir, now?
It's very simple, Dattaji.
Yeah, but he needs some.
I'm looking to expand the video itself.
Below there is.
Now by this part is very small. Our conversation part is very small. How I can expand it?
And you just click your that PPT and then click share also, sir.
Yes, we can see our slides, sir.
Yeah, please go ahead, sir.
Dattaji, go to the desktop there. From you close down and you minimize it and go to the desktop.
Meantime, are you finding any difficulty, sir?
Dattaji.
Sir. Meantime, Kanagaraj. Professor Kanagaraj.
Sir, tell me, sir.
Meantime, we'll start with the next participant. By the time sir feels comfortable with our ready preparedness with presentation.
Yes, we can go ahead, sir.
Laleng Zama, we will give each participant 10 minutes.
Yes, sir. Time is running short now.
Yeah. Please, Dr. Laleng Zama, I request you to present in 9 to 10 minutes, please. Dr. Laleng Zama.
Yes, sir. I'm ready.
Please briefly introduce and you start your presentation, sir.
Before I before I introduce myself, I would like to
Just a minute, sir.
request
Datta sir, can
Professor
you stop presenting?
stop. He have to stop the share screen,
He
otherwise
has
I
to
cannot
stop
share
his
my.
presenting. Kanagaraj, can you control presenting? Will you be able to? Datta sir,
Professor Datta have to stop sharing the screen, otherwise
Okay.
I can't share my.
yeah, I think his it is appearing. His screen is appearing still. You please start, sir. Meantime, we will see. Datta sir, am I audible to you? Are you connected? Yes, Laleng Zama, please go ahead with your presentation. We will see. Meantime, we will try presenting.
All right, thank you so much, sir. My name is Dr. Sila Lengzama. I'm assistant professor in the Department of Social Work. So I feel honored to be among you. And today I will be presenting on research on shifting cultivation and tribal development. I hope you can see my screen.
Go ahead. It's there.
So shifting cultivation is as old as human history. You can date back to the Neolithic period. So it is linked with tribal and rural areas mainly because the so-called Jum cultivation and whatever name that is called by the tribal themselves. So they are linked with tribals and rural areas because shifting cultivation, majority of the shifting cultivators are from this area. So many scholars, many government studies and findings have viewed these shifting cultivations as a threat to ecological balance. So there are mainly two views on shifting cultivation, that is ecological implication and socioeconomic implication. So let me try to highlight what is ecological implication. People who view more of ecological implication is more of an outsider views, and it is mainly how shifting cultivation is viewed as a threat to ecological balance by soil degradation, deforestation. And on the other hand, there is another view that is socioeconomic implication. And certain scholars have viewed shifting cultivation as as a part of the culture of the people who practice shifting cultivation, how it uplifts the economy of the tribal, and how the tribal or the particular people are depending on for their livelihood. So there are certain programs which have been implemented to replace farming system in the future, in the past. And since Jum cultivation is much a part of the tribal culture and a part of the tribal livelihood, so there are certain studies from different field of science. Let me just walk you through. So there are studies on shifting cultivation from botany, but like Van der Hoyralte studies on how shifting cultivation from a science perspective, and there are studies from economics, studies mainly in the hills of Meghalaya, how shifting cultivation is linked to the livelihood and how it support the socio-economic aspect of shifting cultivation in Khasi Hills and West Garo Hills in Meghalaya. So there's also studies from anthropology, mainly in the district of Orissa and Muduvan tribes of Annamalai Hills. So there are also studies from geography. You can find geography talking about the topography, talking about the ecological consequences of shifting cultivation. soil erosion. So we have Guite and Shah studying from a geographical point of view. We have also found studies from rural development point of view, how shifting cultivation is a source of rural development. And from an environmental science point of view, there is a studies on ecological consequences and soil in terms of soil erosion, how it impact the ecology around that. And even from women's studies and from a social work point of view, there are certain studies by Zaitin Vora and Kanagaras in 2008. This is studies in Mizoram, where shifting cultivation and settled cultivations are a source of livelihood for the tribal. So from these studies, certain we could highlight certain focus of these studies. There are corpus literature that can be found, especially if in India among the tribals. So most of the study focuses certain topic, as we can see in the slide. So let me look at them one by one. Regarding cropping pattern, there are studies made by the different people, Lalengzam and Kanagaras, Jami, Zaitin Vora and Kanagaras, Ikowicz. So in terms of cropping pattern, they study the number of crops, the type of crops, and the reason for cultivation, whether it is for sustenance or whether it is for commercial purpose. So mainly the types of crops are cereal, fruits, pulses, and oil seeds. So these are the cropping pattern that you can see in the literature. In terms of input use, input in the form of labor, in the form of seed, high yielding variety seed and local seeds, fertilizers, pesticides, the tools and the irrigation. This type of input could be observed in the literature. And in terms of the study of ecological consequences, we have consequence on climate change, air pollution, soil degradation, deforestation. We have corpus literature, and even the Zoom cycle, the studies on Zoom cycle also, the length of fallow period is decreasing as per the studies. And we have certain literature on Zoom cycle, and even land alienation also. There is literature which talk about the transfer of land from community ownership to private ownership. And even the land alienation is also linked with poverty, unsustainability, and migration among the tribals. So indigenous knowledge and study on indigenous knowledge and livelihood strategy is also seen. Certain literature study that shifting cultivation as a livelihood strategy for the tribal, and even the rationality of the tribal indigenous agriculture practices are also studied. And there are studies on agrarian transformation and livelihood and living condition. So agrarian transformation from shifting cultivation to settled agriculture, this is mainly because of the government program. So the willingness to switch over is studied by Zaitin Vora and Kanagaras in 2008 in Mizoram, and living condition and development is also studied by certain scholar. And agrarian transformation and tribal livelihood and development is studied in Mizoram by Lalengzam and Kanagaras in 2013. And studies have been continued till today. And so we could see that there are corpus literature on shifting cultivation. So let me conclude in this way, since we have a very less amount of time. So if you look at the literature and then the focus of those studies in the past, the tribal indigenous practices are overlooked. So many of the studies are towards the new practices, that is settled cultivation and horticulture in India, and the tribal indigenous practices, their rationality are overlooked. And the second one is that we have seen change, structural change in agriculture, that is a transition from shifting cultivation to settled agriculture without understanding the social fabric of life. So I have mentioned here Mayasri Burra in 1988. This is one of the oldest literature that I could find regarding anthropological studies. He said that since there is a program of the government which try to win away shifting cultivation and introduce a new system. Bora in 1988 said that until and unless they understand the social fabric of life and try without understanding the culture of the people who practice shifting cultivation, he said that in 1988 that within these 50 years, people will not leave or abandon shifting cultivation. He said that within these 50 years, we will still practice shifting cultivation. So because it is a part of our culture, the culture of the tribal especially. So until and unless you understand the social fabric of the tribal, you will not win. So his statement is true even till after 30, 40 years. It is still very true. So we have a social work approach towards agriculture and development. So most of the studies are from other background. Even when it is social work also, we have not utilized other method other than community development. So my suggestion is that social work research towards policy making and advocacy and community development needs to be strengthened in this social work research needs to be strengthened in this area. And let me give an example by organizing a community organization to ecological, sustainable, and integrated farming. So many have tried integrated farming, sustainable farming with the strategy of other discipline, but we have not tried with the strategy, the method, or the models we have as from a social work perspective. So like, for example, market system connecting rural and urban, we have corpus literature studies from an economic point of view, from business administration point of view. We have so many studies, but we have not tried our models, the community development, community organization that we have to sustain this shifting cultivation. So I think it's a high time we have pulled in our method, our models, and our strategies into this the studies on shifting cultivation. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Lalengzama. Am I audible?
Yes, yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Sir, now
Thank you.
we can invite Dattaji. I will share on behalf of him. He has sent me the.
Yeah, please. Dattaji, 10 minutes only, sir. We can have some discussion on the whole theme.
Dattaji, please come.
Dattaji, sir. Please go ahead with your presentation. Yeah. Dr. Lalengzama, can you just stop your presentation? Thank you, Lalengzama.
Yes, I have stopped it.
Thank you.
So now, Dattaji, are you ready?
Yeah, am I audible? I'm just keeping my video off for the network issues. Okay.
Yes,
you please.
please go ahead, sir. Please go ahead.
Just I am opening.
Okay.
You can start, sir.
Yeah,
he's opening.
You can start. I am just sharing. It's ready.
You can just start your introductory part.
let it come first. I just
Yeah. Please go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that is the social work research and urban community development. So good morning, everyone. We have just joined later on also. So I'm sorry because due to technical problem, I'm presenting second one. So please next slide. Konakaji, next slide, please.
Yes.
Yes. Now here the three concept I am just discussing now, because entire the topic, the social work research and the urban community development. Okay, so I'm not going to touch the social work research because already last one day there were not number of discussions went on the issues of social work research, and due to the time constraint, I'm just focusing here. What are the areas that where the social work research possibilities are there? I will only raise these are the issues there first. So earlier slide, first one. Back. Yeah. So first is that urban. That is the very simple concept of urban is that there are any area which have 5,000 population as per 2011 census and 400 square kilometer per population density, and 75% of the male population should have engaged in a non-agricultural occupations. That is the specific our urban definition of the boundaries. Urbanization actually it is a process through which the people migrated from rural to urban in a place, and continuously it is expanding and improving. So that is the concept of urbanization. And now the concept of urbanism. Urbanism is specifically the behavioral pattern, cultural pattern, way of life pattern of any urban areas. That is of urbanism. I am drawing here a very simple example. Look at the Aizawl city. In the Aizawl city, in area are there, probably the city center and the area which is called the no horn zone. When the people are driving, they are not pouring their horn. Okay, the no horn zone is a very unique concept, which is definitely is a complete behavioral pattern of the Aizawl city dwellers. Not it is available in Guwahati, Shillong, or in Kolkata or Mumbai. Okay, so that is the concept of urbanism. So urbanization and the urbanism. One is the concept, one is the process through which an area is expanding, and continuously it is expansion is going on. There is no condition of stopping here. There, I cannot say that the growth of city or the expansion of city stopped here. And third one is the urbanism. And definitely urbanism changes with the pace of time, technology advances, our education advances, and so on. Next slide, please. Kanakaji, next slide, please. Kanakaji, am I audible? Next slide, please. Yeah. Now here from here, just I'm drawing one concept of the history of urbanization, how actually the urbanization came into existence. Just the very simple some of the points are there. At the very beginning, our civilization was hunting gathering. From hunting gathering, there was some times we found that our ancestors they find they learned actually the capacity of cultivation or the semi-agricultural conditions. Instead of searching of food, they started cultivation of the food. So that is the semi-permanent settlement. Why it is a semi-permanent settlement? Because of the soil conditions, because of the water availability, they are moving again from one place to another one. Then with the advancement of the irrigation, the advancement of soil tilling, they are started to living in a particular place. So permanent settlement begins. Next slide, please. Gradually, next slide. Yeah. So gradually, the beginning of the urban civilization means when there was a expansion of the surplus of food came. So everybody did not require to be into the part of the farming. So they started the other occupation, that is the different crops and things over there. So automatically, the civilization came up with an urban setup. Now later on, the urban pattern or the urban development of life or the urbanization actually taken up by the Roman era. The Roman emperors they started developing the urban areas with the establishment of the essential requirement, that is the food, that is the shelters, and that is the education, and so on. Next slide, please. before it. Okay, fine. Next slide. There are some jump of slides. Okay, now question is that with the advancement of gradually, we have reached to the present era of urbanizations. Now, one thing is remember, into the 100 years back, out of the total population of the world, 2 people were living into the urban areas, whereas at present, 50% of the people are living into the urban areas, and which is going to be more than 50% by the mid of this century. If we come down to the situation by the 2030, 590 million people will be living in the cities in India, and 590, that means 59 crore people will be living in cities in India, and almost 60 cities which is have more than 1 million population at that time. So that is the situation of the country over here. Next slide, please. So now, due to that, actually there is a scarcity of the land. So that is a vertical growth. Vertical growth not only for the living, that is the constantly the multi-story building have been came up, not only for the living for our civilization, also we have learned to farming, vertical farming. This kind of in the left on the picture, the vertical farming is very common in many of the cities, specifically in the many Chinese cities. You can see this vertical farming are growing up. Even in our country, we are also adapting such situations over there due to the scarcity of land and the space. Next slide, please. Kanakaji, next, yes. Now the issues of urban community development. First one is that what is urban community? Urban community is basically large size with high density of population, and that is heterogeneity. Formal relationship setup, social distancing. Social distancing does not mean at the time COVID we are actually physical distancing. Social distancing means we are actually unknown to each other. That is the concept of social distancing. Regimentation, segmentation of personalities, and so on. Whereas what are the issues that is requirement of the development for the urban setup? That is the infrastructures, that is road, water, sanitation, transportation, electrification, and so on. Housing, livelihood issues, education, health, and so on. So this is our pattern, and this is our requirement, that is issues for the development. Next slide, please. So now urban development schemes and programs in India. Keeping things in mind, Government of India time to time have brought up number of schemes and have accumulated a lot of fund for keeping the urban development in mind. If we see the background, the rising urban population means the population constantly from the rural to urban are transforming. If we look at the Delhi, every day 1,000 families are settling down in Delhi. So you can understand the expansion the city is required over here. Why it isn't there? Because of search of livelihood, because of better living conditions, as well as the distress into the agriculture. We have experiences recently into the COVID, the first lockdown, that how many number of migrant laborers, they are returning home from the different cities over there. So specifically, this is a constantly rising, that means population pressure in our urban sector. And city, definitely city is one of the issues, but actually the cause for the booming of the economy of a country. So definitely city is required as far as the economic situation is concerned, and urban area is also feeling the pressure of overpopulation. So this is the two in tandem, how we can go ahead. So accordingly, Government of India has brought some schemes, and as per social work researcher concerned, we have to be there. We have to find out the opportunity and scope to work into these are the schemes and issues, because there are certain areas whereas limitations, whereas requirement of change, whereas requirement of proper monitoring policies and issues are there where social work research are possible. So can you go for the next slide, please? So first scheme is that Amrut, that is the Atal Mission for Rejuvenation and the Urban Transformation. It is actually the expansion or in continuation of the JNURM, Jawaharlal Nehru National Urban Renewal Mission. It is the expansion of that. But if we just compare that, this Amrut is actually looking towards the large cities, whereas JNURM looking small cities and other parts. Second part is that water, sanitation, roadways are also the part of the Amrut, which was also the part of the JNURM. Now here, water and sanitation has actually moved to the SBM, that is the Swachh Bharat Mission. I'm coming later slides. So Swachh Bharat Mission, it is in there. So automatically here there is a duplication of programming we can find out. Okay, whatever the things I'm explaining here, I'm stating here from the different literature and studies, what I got it, I'm just explaining it. I'm not incorporating any of my own ideas
Can
over
you
here.
kindly conclude, sir? We are
Yeah,
running out
I'll
of
take
time.
a couple of minutes only.
Yes,
Next slide,
thank you,
please.
sir.
Kanukaji, next slide. Next slide. Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana. Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana is actually, it is a for the affordable housing, is a flagship program, affordable housing for the poor, and which target is the 1 crore urban housing to be prepared, and through the PPP model, public private partnership model. And here again, the problem is arising is there is a no occupancy and the ineligible beneficiaries. Okay, these are the problems that are coming out from this project. Whereas in the earlier, the improvement of the existing settlements could have been more better in that directions. Existing of the settlement means, for example, in 1,000 square meter, one slum is exist. Out of the 100 square meter, multiple storage building can be built up with the flats where all the slum dwellers can be accommodated and rehabilitated. Whereas the 900 square meter can be utilized for other housing and commercial purposes, and the entire project will be a profit as well as settlement for the both. So that was the issues can be raised over here. Now the next slides please, which is called about Smart City Mission. Smart City Mission, next slide. Smart City Mission is actually to cater the next slide, Kanukaji. Oh, next slide is Swachh Bharat Mission. Okay. Okay, take it. It's okay. So Smart City Missions is actually to cater the aim of the middle class, specifically the urban middle class, and to enable the city with more digitalization process and to bring into the modernity. So with these three concepts, the Smart City Mission came up. But Smart City Missions came up, again there is a concept of the duplicacy with the program of Amrut. And again here, one of the controversial issues is that SVP, Special Purposive Vehicles, that is actually the corporate structure. That means it is actually bypassing the urban local self-government. That means
Kindly conclude.
I'll take 1 minute, sir.
Yes, sir, please, sir.
That is the
Yeah.
special purposive vehicles. So actually, it is actually the bypassing the local self-government. Local self-government means the provisions of the governing and participation of the local politics, local system is actually in a jeopardize. So under this system, whether how much it is going to be beneficial is a question over here. Next slide, please. Kanukaji, next slide. Now, what are the issues are remaining here? This is my last slide. First one is that inequalities. Inequalities in the form of, take the example of the Amrut. Amrut is actually, there are different form of large cities. But what about the small cities? What about the target of the populations? What about the migration population? So these are not taken care. Then lack of decentralization. Lack of decentralization means the program actually is a SPV, that is a small purposive vehicle, actually keeping aside the local self-government. That is not issues. It should be local self-government should be empowered to look after the local issues and to bring into the development. Third one is the monitoring. As the duplication of the issues, as Amrut is there, SBM is there, Swachh Bharat Mission is also there, as well as other programs are there. How monitoring possibilities are there? That is a complex issues are arising. And here, most of the programs are taken as a one size fit for all. one size cannot be fit for all. India is a very diversified country. So there is a geographical issues. There is a population density issues. There is issues of population culture. The program is applicable for Pune and the program applicable for Shillong is not acceptable. There are certain number of variations are in there. So with this, I'm concluding here. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Professor Datta, sir. Thank you very much for, you had to shorten due to lack of time. I'm sorry for that. Now I request Dr. Avnish Nagar, kindly present your paper. We have only 7 minutes, please, so that we have some time for a discussion. Avnish?
Yes, I am here.
Yes.
Am I
Kindly,
audible?
sir, kindly.
Am I audible
Yeah.
to you?
You are audible, sir. You are audible. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Kanakaraj, my presentation is with you. Will you be able to share my presentation? Kanakaraj?
I'm just doing. You continue.
Okay.
Continue.
So thank you, dear sir, chairperson sir, and my dear friend, philosopher and guide, Professor Kanakaraj, for inviting me and giving me this opportunity to present my small work on social mobilization and development, a topic which Kanakaraj has given me to present in this very important seminar. So I am thankful to the organizers, the chairperson, Kanakaraj, and the entire team of Central University of Mizoram, Department of Social Work. Well, my presentation is on social mobilization and development, but I am particularly focusing upon the research on social self-help group, SHGs, right? So I am of the opinion that we all know about self-help group, their importance, their benefits to the nation, to the poor people, to the marginalized community. But just to give you an overview, I would like to present with this statement that the self-help groups are very important, very pivotal, very crucial in the development of Indian society. The presentation attempts to critically review the researches which are conducted in the field of social mobilization and mainly in the self-help groups. So what I have done is I made an attempt to study few researches on self-help groups which were already available on the website in the Shodh Ganga portal. So I have gone through all these studies. I studied around 20 plus such studies in which most of them were from different disciplines like economics, like public administration, sociology, and some of them were even from biotechnology and very few from social work background. So after studying all such SHGs, microfinance, microcredit, PhDs, dissertation thesis, I have just made a presentation about the methodology they have used, about the objectives that the researchers had, and the research process that they have applied and they have used in their researches, just to know how and what type of researches we are conducting on the subject. So mainly that is what all about this presentation, just an overview about this presentation. And I think that you all know that how self-help groups are working in India. Basically, it came from the Grameen Bank of Bangladesh. Mohammad Yunus from Chittagaon in 1975 when he began this experiment, then Chittagaon experiment of Grameen Bank, and then in Bangladesh it was very much successful. It was it has yielded very good result. Then it floated to many countries. Now at present, I think 50 plus countries are using self-help group and microfinance schemes programs. India is one of the country where since 80s we are having these self-help groups. Initially, it was started by, in India, it was started by Ilaben Bhatt in Ahmedabad with Seva. Then Annapurna Mahila Mandal in Maharashtra, Working Women Forum in Tamil Nadu, and then NABARD has recognized it. And after that, we have lot many self-help group, especially if we historically, if we see Mairada experiment are very important in self-help group in India, which were started in 80s. So I'm not going into deep into all these things because I think you all know about SHGs, their history, their origin, and what type of contribution they are making in our country. Presently, we have around 6.6 million SHGs, where more than 72 million people are involved through this process. So 6.6 million is a big number. I think there are more than 6.6 million people who are involved. And what my point is, if these 6.6 million SHGs are work well, if they produce good results, if they work in tandem with the objectives and the purpose that they have set, then we can change the entire structure of the rural India. But what is happening currently is that we are not able to produce the result that we have thought of, through SHGs. We have thought that, through self-help group, we will be able to bring many people from below poverty line to above poverty line. We have thought that we will be able to link them with entrepreneurship, with income generation activities, with some other activities through which they could be able to, come from the greedy clutches of money lenders, and they will enjoy a good social and economic life. But to some extent we are able to succeed in our objective. But if you look at the entire picture, we will find it the success in patches. In middle India, you could see that self-help groups are not working very well. In southern India, they are working well. In northeast, I was discussing with Kanakraj. He said that SHGs are not able to produce good result in Mizoram and northeast. So there are different areas and different result of SHGs in India. So what I have done is that those 20 plus studies I have studied are from across the country. Some studies are from Manipur, some from Tamil Nadu, some from Andhra Pradesh, some of the study from Rajasthan, and some from Himachal Pradesh. And these studies, basically you can see the Kanagraji, next slide. Yes, these are some of the studies which I have gone through. Time is a constraint, otherwise I could I could explain each and every one. But these are around 20 plus studies from different subjects, some of them from sociology, commerce, economics, social work, etc., etc. The key research areas of all these studies were SHG and women empowerment, SHG and rural development, SHGs and entrepreneurship development, sustainable development through SHGs, social development through SHGs, gender perspective in SHGs, structure and function of SHGs, and SHGs and social inclusion. Mainly talked about the downtrodden, the marginalized communities, especially SCs and STs, how they have benefited from the self-help group. So these are the key research areas from all the researches that I have identified. All such researchers attempt to identify various important aspects of self-help groups in India, mainly focused upon enhancement of social and socio-economic status of the marginalized section, particularly women. Because in India, we have found that majority of the self-help groups are mainly from the constituted from the marginalized women. The general objectives of the study was to study the socio-economic background, to study the level of borrowing, how the beneficiaries were saving, how they were investing, how SHGs have how SHGs have promoted entrepreneurship, how SHGs have promoted socio-economic development, how SHGs are working as an important factor in sustainability, how SHGs were formed, how SHGs are strengthening the socio-economic level of the members, how office bearing members have changed their outlook, their perspective, how their self confidence has increased. These are some of the general objectives that I have summarized for you after having a detailed study of these 20 plus researches. The main important factor, next slide, is the research methodology. What I have seen, what I have observed is, and I was surprised to know that in majority of the researches across the disciplines, whether it is economics or sociology or public administration or biotechnology, for instance, they are using same research methodology. Because we all know that different subjects have different approaches to study. They have different perspectives. Every subjects come with a different perspective. Like social workers have different perspectives. Sociology people have different. Economics people see things in a different way. But in these studies which I have studied, I found that each and every study is majority of them are having same research methodology. They were using same traditional research methodology. They were using quantitative methods, survey method, interview schedule. They were using, and I was surprised to know that very few have used mixed method. And those who have used mixed method were from social work background. So I was personally happy with that social workers were using qualitative method as well as the quantitative method for their investigation. They were using case studies. But even in social work, even for social work background student, they were not as keen, as much keen to use qualitative method. That should. Yes.
Avnish, please, you need to summarize.
Yes.
Out of time, actually. Please,
yes.
sir.
So out of the 20 plus studies, I think only 2 studies studied were, belonging to research methodology who used qualitative as well as quantitative method. Majority of them were not using focus group discussion or other method like action research or experimental research. They were not using. So my point of view is we are using traditional method, and by using these methods, by using this traditional method, we cannot produce good result, because we as a researcher, we need to identify the problem, the research gap that are there in the self-help groups. And one interesting thing that I noted down is that when I read it, the theoretical framework of the researchers, every theoretical framework was insisting upon problems of SHGs in India. But when I read the conclusion of their research, everybody was saying that in their area, SHGs are working very well. So why we are not critical? Why researchers are giving conclusion that in their research area everything is good, while in the first chapter or while in the theoretical framework they are saying that they are writing that SHGs are facing a lot of problem in India, but the conclusion is entirely different from what they are saying in the first chapter. So that is one thing that I have identified. Now, just 1 or 2 minutes. Benefit of SHG, you all know that SHG has contributed to poverty alleviation, income increase, loan repayment, self-employment, confidence level, money lenders, they come out of greedy clutches of money lender. Everything is good in SHG, no doubt about it. But what we need is that we need to identify new methods, we need to identify new approaches, and if our present approaches, present methods, present ways are not suitable to us, or if we are not good in it, I think we need to look upon new methods, new ways of conducting research. that is all about my presentation. There are many things that I wanted to present, but I think there is a constraint of time, so I would not take much of your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Avinash ji. A very good presentation. You covered many good points pertaining to SHG. Now I request Dr. Vanlaharu. I'm not able to pronounce it properly.
Vanlal Srai Jela.
Vanlal
Vanlal Srai Jela.
Vanlal Srai Jela.
Yes, I'll share my
Yes, thank you.
screen.
Thank you, sir. Welcome. Sir, you have 6 minutes.
Okay,
Go to slideshow mode.
okay. So today my topic is on social work research on rural development in India. And for the introduction, as rural development is a multidimensional and a comprehensive concept which takes into consideration a number of aspects. There is no single universally acceptable approach for rural development. So from the perspective of social work interventions in rural development is necessary, as the primary mission of social work has always been to enhance the well-being of the vulnerable, oppressed, and people living in poverty. And the subject of social work also distinguishes itself from other disciplines, as its unique focus is on poverty and its related issues. And an empirical study in this area will bring conceptual understanding and clarity of different aspects of rural development. And there is an emerging literature of rural development contributed by social workers, which focus on different domains of rural development. And it is observed that the conceptual framework and theory used were mainly based on Western literature, as the subject of social work itself is still growing in India. So in the light of this, this paper will review some selected theses, like 5 theses in short, which were compiled by social work institution in India. And the first one is a study done by G. Narayana Reddy. And as most of the studies in community power structure are Western-centric and based on urban setting, he tried to examine this by a comparative analysis of 2 medium-sized and multi-caste villages. And the study used the positional, reputational, and decision-making process to identify the leaders and their sources. And it was revealed that in the larger and more modernized village, there was no particular resource for power, and it was difficult to be in power for a long time. And this was mainly due to the divisions among them based on political groups. And on the smaller and less modernized village, power was concentrated on one dominant caste and was always united with no opponents. And in the larger and more modernized village, inward migration is high that may facilitate the representation of the multiple groups with independency. And however, the study also revealed that in the larger and more modernized villages, the leaders could not successfully implement community development programs, while in the smaller and less modernized villages, the achievement in undertaking community work and maintaining social order in the village was laudable. So these findings may be a very controversial or challenging issue. So the study posed questions that should people opt for greater democracy, or should they support the leadership that is concentrated on one dominant caste? But however, I think that another question can be proposed here. That is, are people happy, or is there well-being in the community while implementing this community program successfully? Because an example can be in resource society when we are under the superintendent rule during the colonialism period, there was discontentment among the people as the new form of administration was introduced in collaboration with the chiefs. During the time this were done successfully, although the chief subjects were not happy. So therefore, it may be necessary to have another study to assess their well-being, which you can use like economic indicators like SDI, HPI, or any other thing which can be appropriate. So coming to the next study by K.P. Darsar Rath, he explored the role of community-based organization in rural development. It draws its attention from integrated practice model, which highlight individuals, groups, and institutions capacity for positive change when empowered and given opportunities. And the role of CBOs in strengthening rural community was also assessed in the study. And the study was explanatory and mixed method was used. And it was found that CBOs provide opportunities of training and capacity building to their members and improve linkage with the development agencies. And most of the villagers feel positive changes in their village due to the CBO interventions, and they provide opportunities to involve themselves in the process of participatory development. And the importance of engaging local bodies and reach towards the last segment of the village was heavily emphasized in the study. So let me just give another example here. We can also observe the importance and strength of CBOs in this COVID-19 pandemic. So in any development studies, the participation of CBOs cannot be neglected, especially in rural areas in which the people are passive and ignorant. So lastly, the importance of community participation can be seen itself in the evolution of Indian development economic policies and programs like the 73rd and 74th Constitutional Amendment, Community Development Program, and the various committee like Balwandai Meta Committee and all. Coming to the next study, it was conducted by Anand Kumar to understand the socio-economic changes brought by rural development programs in India. And the study was drawn by the concept of vicious circle model, which defined rural poverty as powerlessness, poverty, illiteracy, poor health, and isolation. And it is assumed that a suitable and efficient rural development programs are necessary to break this circle. He also used the conceptual model of rural development, which suggests that participation of beneficiaries in different development programs bring about the transformation of rural people in their socioeconomic development. In the light of this, the study aimed at understanding the socioeconomic changes, and the study was conducted in 6 villages, which was based on the performance of integrated rural development program, agriculture development program, and development of basic amenities. And overall, the study revealed that majority of the respondents augment their income after adoption of these programs. And however, no significant change was observed in the socioeconomic status of the respondents after adopting these programs. And I believe that the study may be more reliable if the sample state and villages could be more in order to draw the whole picture of
2 minutes, sir. 2 minutes, sir.
Okay. Okay, then.
Please come to.
I will just skip some of these studies.
If you summarize, that would be fine.
Yeah, 1 minute, sir. 1 minute, sir. This is the studies done by me in my MPhil dissertation. As the concept of livelihood diversification has become an important strategy for rural survival, we probe into the livelihood diversification of 2 villages in rural Mizoram from a sustainable livelihood framework. And this framework was used to understand the dynamics of livelihood diversification in rural areas and to construct a hypothesis. And the 2 villages were selected by computing the livelihood diversity index in Serchhip district. In the 2 selected villages, the level of diversification was again determined by Simpson Index of Diversity. And the study found that most of the livelihood assets have a significant positive effect on livelihood diversification. And the average annual household income and average monthly expenditure of household were also significantly different between the 2 villages. And however, a high level of diversification was not observed in both the villages. And this was, what I want to stress is that this was mainly due to the predominance of agriculture in the villages. There was no crop diversification and presence of industries to diversify their livelihood. And in addition, disguised unemployment was also observed in the sample villages, as majority of them depend solely on agriculture. So to diversify their livelihood, secondary sector of the economy must be improved in the village. This was also evident in Indian economy, where agricultural sectors contribute the least in GDP, although it has maximum dependency on our economy. Further, there was earlier maturity of service sector before maturity of manufacturing sector in India. Hence, the study proposed suggestions to promote farm diversification, capacity building, infrastructure development, and establishing industries to strengthen rural livelihood and extend its diversification. And this is another study done by me in my PhD, oil palm cultivation in rural areas. We found that oil palm significantly contribute to the income of the rural economy, although we observe many challenges in the process. So due to limitation of time, I will just go to the conclusion. So from this review, it was observed that social work contribution in rural development research is still in the initial stage because the subject of rural development is very broad with distinct problems and issues in different areas. So keeping in mind the necessity of rural social work in practice, it is also important that the theoretical framework of rural social work is reflected more in the professional training curriculum in institution. And this general lack of preparation creates a major barrier to developing the professional social work needed to address the needs of rural clients and the unique social problems of rural communities. And recently, most of the social institutions offer specialization on community development, which is a turning point in the subject. And although there are time constraints, I come across with different studies to select studies for this paper. So in some of these studies, the studies which I don't select for this particular paper, limitation could be observed. So if I may comment, the first observation is that some of the studies selected sample areas were chosen based on the familiarity and conveniences, and can be said that they overgeneralize the findings to some extent. So with regard to rural development studies, this may be due to a need to spend a number of days in rural areas in which some scholars hesitate to do so. And a reliable and composed rural development study requires sincere commitment and active participation. Further, as social work always believe in in-depth understanding of the clients and their associating problems, it may be more productive if social work research is more qualitative oriented. So this will ensure a better understanding of the clients, which may be individuals, group or communities, that will further help in developing an appropriate and context-oriented intervention strategies. Moreover, a better integration of the study and context-based may be required in some of the studies to enhance its quality as well as to uphold the social work as a distinct and professional subject. So lastly, however, there are many studies done by social workers that contribute significantly in rural development as well as enrich the knowledge in these areas. So that's it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Vandareshulu. Grateful to you for your presentation. We go to the last presenter, Dr. Elizabeth. Kindly present in 6 minutes, please. We are running out of time. Dr. Elizabeth. Elizabeth. Hello. Dr. Kanagarajan. Kanagarajan. Kanagarajan.
Sir, she
Dr.
is joining,
Elizabeth.
sir. You ask a question and it's a discussion session. We can start, sir.
Okay. So thanks for presentation. Now we will keep open for discussion from the participants. If you have any points, observations to make pertaining to any presentation, you are free to make your observation. Yes, from the participants' point of view. Time was short for the presenters to present their paper in a more broader manner. But however, I think some observations or clarifications, if participants wish, they are free to ask. Yes, appears no observations?
Any questions are there?
Yeah. Any participants would like to ask?
No questions.
No questions. Yeah. So Dr. Elizabeth joined, Kanagaraj.
Not yet, sir. So let me make a few observations on the presentations. All the presentations were very good. They were all basing their presentations on the basis of their observations, and actually they have all reviewed the studies which are conducted by social scientists, and they have also done some of them have done, they themselves have done work on that. Wherever they have done the work, PhD or MPhil work, we could see the interest, the enthusiasm is of high order. So I record my appreciation to all the presenters, and I request the chair to share his comments also.
Yeah, thank you, Kanagaraj. I'm at the outset, I take this opportunity to thank Professor Datta, Laleng Jama, Avnish, Vanleresh, Sheila for their presentations on urban development, urban issues, tribal development, social mobilization, and rural development. It is very important that we are able to come on one platform to discuss social work research issues pertaining or methodology pertaining to community development or social development. Very importantly, some are review studies. I think we need to look at. It's a very important one. What Dr. Avnish and to some extent Dr. Vannare Sheila, they presented, very systematically the reviews pertaining to social mobilization and rural development. I think now it's a time for us to adopt a systematic review approach and meta-analysis approach to have some studies to inform proper decision making at the policy and program level. Especially social work research, we are not able to focus on meta-analysis and systematic review. So these two papers will certainly give that strength and motivation to researchers to take up such studies, wherein they focus on some common factors and variables to reconcile the results and link to the effectiveness of any policy program, or helping to some modifications or introduction of new policies, programs in different sectors. And as far as urban development is concerned, in fact, our social work research is very minimal. We normally focus more on rural development, and earlier we used to focus on tribal development also. Since Mizoram falls mostly in tribal communities, there are very good number of studies or focus on tribal issues. But urban development, urban community organization is missing in our research, teaching, and practice. So I think that is the area where we need to focus. I would like to give few observations which are very important for me that I learned from some of our social work teachers like Professor Laldas and all. How we have to make our research process, our research method more effective one in adopting for our practice and also for our teaching and for research projects or whatever it is. Mainly from the papers, we have to go towards practice. We had a generation of teachers like, we were influenced by Professor H.M. Marulu Siddhaya, a professor of Bangalore University, who was well known for community development practices. Such innovations are necessary for we teachers to take up way. We hardly quasi-experimental design, single subject design in social work research that normally Professor Laldas, persuade the teachers, and he teaches, he trains, and he persuades teachers to practice following quasi-experimental design to show the effectiveness or impact of the initiatives or programs or policies that are implemented in rural, urban, tribal communities. That will be a very important aspect that we can focus on. Also, the single subject design, where we want to see the changes in the individual, like self-help groups and others, or any youth group or women group or children group, where we want to see behavioral change or certain patterns of change in their behavior, in their lifestyle. So where that sounds very effective. So for impact studies and all, are evaluating policies and programs, their impact and effectiveness. Certainly quasi-experimental designs are going to be very useful and very robust to make our research very scientific one, and not less than any experimental research followed by clinical psychology or economics in general. So now we need to focus. I think this platform has given a new boost for the social work teachers to have to collaborate research. We can collaborate research. We can collaborate fieldwork practices. You will initiate your fieldwork practices in your school and communities, and you can initiate a research project in your area and we in our area. So we can collaborate in research and social work practice at the field level through field action projects, where we can innovate and think, implement innovative practices of research methodology, and we sharing the results and informing other schools of social work to replicate such innovative practices. I think we had some discussion, I had some discussion with Kanagaraj in this matter. Hopefully we may have some webinar on fieldwork practices, and maybe very in a robust way, teachers need focus on focused learning, focused adoption of practices or methodological practices related to quasi-experimental design and single subject design, following even qualitative research where we follow phenomenological approach and grounded theory, though they are also very important. We also adopt participatory rural appraisal of Robert Chamber. So these are all the methodological issues that we need to integrate in our teaching, training our students, in our practice with the rural, urban, tribal communities, and also the field action projects or research projects. So I'm very grateful to all the paper presenters. I learned many things from your presentations, ignite our mind, the young minds, to take up such research studies. I'm grateful to Professor Kanagaraj for giving me an opportunity to chair. Thank you, Kanagaraj, and thank you all the paper presentations.
Dr. Henry, please thank Dr. Henry. Please thank the chairperson and others. Henry. So network problem probably. So
you can do.
Thank you, Professor Chennavir, for conducting the session.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Very systematic manner and finishing it within the stipulated time. So managing session within the time frame is the primary thing when we come to organizers' point of view that we realize actually. Of course, all the participants, all the resource persons, Professor Subrata Datta, Dr. Laleng Zama, Dr. Avnish Nagar, Dr. Vallal Survaijela. You could see Dr. Elizabeth could not join. I just find because of network problem. Henry also could not join. Some network issues are there. So I thank them also for making this session very interesting. Our idea is to look back what we have done in the country, in each specialization, each fields, and bring that all knowledge to social work literature and to the classroom. And further getting directions for our research and enriching social work and making social work really a profession in Indian context. That is what our concern. So this session has gone very well, and I hope each of you will be able to publish a book on this. That much material you have gathered for that. So thank you very much. We will go to the next session. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
Thank you,
professor.
sir. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Professor. Thank you very much.
Datta sir, Lalengzama, Avinash Nagar, and
Thank you, sir.
Orange.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.